I will never receive affection again. We're going to be reacting to another post from Reddit, and this guy is in a very difficult situation. I've spoken to several people in my lifetime doing this, where the partner has decided that sex is now off the table, and there's several reasons that might happen. In the few times that we've not been able to help people around this was when somebody was clearly asexual and they'd been tolerating having sex for quite a long time, and it was affecting their mental health. So it came to a point where they needed to resolve that in a different way. And then the other bit was somebody who was lesbian all along, but uh, because of family expectations, they decided to get married and so on, and they ended up coming out when they were married, which was again a different situation. So there's nothing that we could have done to help, and those are the sort of situations where somebody would take sex off the table, and then you would have to consider the different actions to resolve it. In this case, we're talking about somebody who's sexually avoidant. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that and why she might end up in this situation, and why they might have this dynamic where she feels comfortable to say sex is off the table, which is absolutely a horrible situation to be in, especially when you've married somebody wanting to be close to them and build a life together for the future, and for them to say, for the rest of our future, the one thing that you need in order to feel close to me, I'm going to take that away, which is absolutely cruel, very, very cruel. And again, I know most people within the comments, if they're ladies, they'll say, you don't know what has happened. Yes, I do not know. At the moment, I'm just going to take what he's saying, and we can. All I can do is speculate until they give me alternative scenario. So if they do give me alternative scenario, I'm willing to take all of that into account. But uh, in any case, there's no real reason for anyone to keep anyone in a relationship, or be want to be in a relationship with somebody and not be able to connect with them in the way that they want to connect, regardless of whether he's done something wrong or not. If you choose to remain in that relationship, then you have to be navigating a way back to a place where you can actually fix it, so you are actually connecting. If he's done something completely wrong, where she's not able to meet him in that way, then yes, we'll talk about what it might look like in terms of um, living separate, especially when there's kids along. So there's probably some other dynamics that are going on. So we'll discuss a little bit about that. I'm going to go and start. Well, I'm going to get the computer to read through this post. I've tried reading. I struggle a lot because I'm dyslexic. So it's going to read some of it. I'm going to pause at some points, and we're going to talk about some points, and then hopefully from there, if you are in this situation, it will give you some ideas on what you need to do in order to fix it. And however, if as well as understand what are the potential situations that can make this come arise within your relationship. So if it's already happening, you can stop her taking sex off the table within your relationship. So without further ado, here we go.
40M, 41F, had an argument last night, where she said that despite my efforts to meet her standard, it looks like that will never happen, and therefore she will continue to not want to be affectionate with.
Yeah, so right off the bat, he talks about that despite he meeting her standards, and I think this is one of the most terrible situation within any relationship. Recently, I was listening to something on TikTok, I think, and somebody said something, and I thought that is probably one of the most powerful things I've heard about being in a relationship. And he said the number one reasons why people fail within relationships is because there's uncommunicated expectations. So in this case, he wants to meet these standards, or she's got standards, and she hasn't communicated what those standards are. So this guy is trying his best to do the best he can in order to meet these unspoken standards, and therefore it's got to the point that despite all the efforts that he's doing, she still sees as though he's not doing enough. Now, I can see clearly here that she's not communicating what enough looks like, and he can see that he's now wrecking his brain, like, I don't understand. And it's got to the point that she's disappointed with his efforts, that she feels like, okay, I'm not willing to go to sex with you, which is a terrible thing, because you think about it, that in this case, she wants him to jump hoops in order to get affection. Now, there's a few things about this, and I'm just going to briefly walk you through what would have caused this. Uh, Generally, when it comes to relationships and how we pick relationships, we have blueprints on how we want a relationship to go. So in this case, there's one issue that is a problem here, where from the guy, his caregivers never felt him, never told him he was good enough for being their child. So it could be the moms or whoever it was. They never told him that he was good enough as a child. I've got kids. I want my daughter to know that she's good enough. She doesn't have to do anything in order for me to love her. I love her regardless. My son, same. They don't have to do anything. And in this case, if their parents or his parents only gave him affection, only validated him when he did something good, it sets the tone on how he's going to get affection and relationship, or at least affection within a relationship. So in this case, he feels like he needs an act of service in order to get affection. And this sets the tone on how he's going to conduct himself in a relationship. Now he finds himself in this relationship where he feels like he needs to be in service in order to get affection. And this then sets the dynamic where she now has expectations of, okay, this is what you need to serve. You need to serve in order for me to give you affection. Now, she would have come from a household where, again, she never felt validated. And because she never felt validated, she needed, in order for her to behave or whatever, again, there's to dive in a little bit deeper in this, they talk about attachment styles and how people interact within relationships based off of how they were treated as children. But I'm not going to go into detail with that. But generally, what will happen is that this person becomes, in order for me to give you affection, I need to see you do certain amount of things. And so, subconsciously, when he was beginning a relationship, he subconsciously picked this person that was going to make him serve in order to get affection. And it's weird. In fact, after speaking to thousands and thousands of guys, this is one thing that I've noticed pretty frequently, that these guys that are acts of service in order to get affection always pick a woman that is, I need acts of service in order to show you affection. And then there's this really weird thing that happens that it doesn't matter. And again, the most of 9 times out of 10, they don't communicate what those standards are and what those acts of service should be and how much of that needs to be happen. So this becomes even if she does communicate what they are, if he does meet them, she'll then push it back up because again, she won't feel in control, or at least feel affection, or to want to feel affection if that those needs are being met. She needs to see consistent acts of service for her to feel a sense of validation. Very weird, but this ends up breeding a sense of resentment from the guy and the woman, and because there's this uncommunicated expectations in this relationship, you get to this point now. Large amount of resentment around this already. Based off of what he says in the future, I'm just jumping a gun here. He says they've got 2 kids under 8, so they've been together for more than 8 years, or at least 8 years, and so they've had 8 years of this weird dynamic. So you can clearly see there's some resentment that is built up over a period of time, and this guy is just torturing himself to try and get approval from this person, and this person has just moved to the goalpost to the point where she's now hitting to the heights of resentment, where she's now like, okay, this whole sex thing, I'm taking it off the table. So, and again, we're just starting into this world. So he says affection has been taken away from forever, and then we're going to
Basically forever. My crime? I don't speak in the right tone. I take too long to get house projects done. Beside the fact that we both work full-time jobs.
So as you can see, it says he doesn't speak in the right tone. So she's micromanaging how he communicates, which again, is controlling behavior. You, the household should be somewhere where somebody's safe, be able to speak in however you want to speak. I know that you don't have to speak in an angry tone. Now, I try my best to be as relaxed, as patient as, and I 9 times out of 10, my wife says you're too laid back that you're almost laying down. But at the same time, I do get frustrated and I do get angry and I might raise my voice. And again, it's just part of being in part of a family. But at the same time, um, I'm willing to guess that this guy is, based off of the stuff that he's already said that he's trying to control himself around some of these situations. But she's in such a horrible headspace that everything that he does is getting her to her last nerve, because at the height of resentment, everything that that other person does is horrible. So if she's decided that he's a toxic, which most women say, he's got toxic behavior, everything that she sees, she's seeing through the lens of toxic. Everything that she sees is in the lens of it's horrible. So I feel really feel for this guy, because she's even controlling how he speaks. And again, if anyone is holding affection and then wanting to control everything that you do and how you behave, that is not very good place to be. And it says, I take too long with projects. Now, this is a very fair point from him. We've had a lot of projects in my household, and there's a time when there was frustration building around this, where I would start them, I couldn't finish them, and I worked a lot of hours. I would say about 90 hours of my week are dedicated to making income for our household. So when I do get home, sometimes on the weekends, I'm really really tired, and this became a place of contention within our relationship. But at the same time, I started realizing that some of the projects that I was not doing them really good. I mean, I was really really rubbish at some of the projects, and it just got me into a place where I just procrastinated, because I knew that I'm going to do it and it's going to turn out to be rubbish. So we've now decided that any projects where I have to buy tools, I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to get a guy to do it. So if it means that we're going to take some months saving up for that project, we'll save up, get it, somebody who's a professional, they'll get it done. It looks much better. In fact, our house in the last few months has looked much better because we've just got professionals to do it. And I think in this case, this guy needs to have a conversation around this, especially when it's affecting your relationship, that the projects that are not being done. I think her expectations of, like, I did a plumbing job, and my wife was quite proud of the fact that I did a plumbing job, but it took me way longer than I needed to. And I ended up buying tools, and it was not the best job I could have done. And I wish I got a guy. But my point being is that sometimes you're learning on the job, and it can be difficult, and it can potentially do more damage than it should. So in this case, I think if I was this guy, it's something that I would deal with in terms of projects. You can have an agreement that, okay, maybe I might need to get somebody to do this. If it's cutting the grass and doing the backyard, I do that, and it's no problem. I hate it, but I'm willing to do that because it's something I can control. It's something that is quite easy for me to do. So, and then it goes on to say, they both work again. The fact that they both work, it is, yeah. She's being inconsiderate, that yeah, now I don't know how many hours that he dedicates to it, but then he goes on to allude that they've got 2 kids under the age of 8. So again, there is some time that is involved, that when you're off work, yes, you got already stuff that you're doing inside the household that is very important, where you're sharing responsibilities, but at the same time you want to also have that time with your children. So again, there's a balance issue and a priority issue amongst this household here, where they both need to have conversation. You can see that there's a lack of communicating at the expectations and what is required to run this household, and there's also a bit of delusion on both of them what can be achieved. Now again, I'm not advocating for you guys to be lazy so you don't do anything. I'm also just saying that you have to be reasonable. So the other day I came from work on a Sunday, and I just said to my wife, I'm going to go and lay down and have a nap. And she did not. There was still a list of jobs to be done, but she understands that, okay, my husband is tired. I'm going to prioritize getting some rest. And for us to have a relationship like that is very good where she can understand that, okay, he's gonna go and have a nap. It really needs this right now, and she didn't make a big deal out of it. Which, when I speak to other people, they say their wives make a big deal out of it, which I don't understand why they would. So again, but I know part of it is because I'm quite consistent with what I do, but also she appreciates the stuff that I do when I'm around the house. So again, where are we? So say that we both work, and we have two children under 8, and I own two businesses. Now this is a very bad thing. Anybody who owns two businesses, this is a failure from this guy. Massive failure. There's, unless you are on a level where you're making millions on one business, there's no business for you to be doing two businesses. And I'm saying this as a business owner. The moment you have two businesses, you've got two client attraction systems. You've got to market those businesses. You have to fulfill on those businesses. And again, if you have employees and if they are flourishing businesses, then some of these issues that you're having within your household shouldn't be issues. The fact that you're having to try and do projects for yourself, it means that your businesses are not doing well enough for you to actually afford to get somebody to come in. So I think you need to figure out which business that you need, or the business that's most likely to make you the most money, and then you focus on one. So here, you're a bit delusional on this case, and I'm putting you to the sword, my guy, that you're fucking being delusional on this. You should not be focused on more than one business. Focus on one business, and when that business is now making you enough money, then you don't even open a second business. You go to adjacent markets. Now that's something that we teach within our community, again, when it comes to businesses and how you can structure that, client attraction systems, and then also how you can then explode your business, which is what this guy is not doing. Because what's happening here, and the reason why he's failing at the business, is because his mental bandwidth is being used up in his household, because he's failing to manage his household. He's not showing up as a leader in his household, and his mental bandwidth is not clearly stopping him from focusing on the businesses that he's on. In fact, he should be focused on one, and when he can resolve his household, he'll be more active within the business and actually make ridiculous amount of money, where those house projects that he's talking about will be paid for by some, like I said, you have to get a guy. It's the college opportunity cost. So is you doing the house projects taking you away from you building the business? If it is, then you should be building the business, so you can then actually by getting a guy, it frees you up to do the business and then actually make better money. So that is not an issue. So just a little bit of a rant there. I'm sorry about that, guys. But for somebody to say they've got two businesses, they think it's something that is to be proud of. For me, it's an absolute fail. It's absolute fail. Jeff Bezos, people going to say Elon Musk and all those people. Elon Musk and those guys started off with one business and they focused on one business. Jeff Bezos started one business and he's only focused on one business, and that's why he's a billionaire. Again, there's evidence to show that any guy who goes and does several businesses, they think it's by opening up more businesses, it makes you amazing. You're a fucking fool if that's how you're going to conduct yourself in terms of business. I can guarantee you now, you will fail. And again, you can see this evidence from the relationship side of things. So that's one thing you need to focus on. I hope this guy is actually watching this, because you needed to hear that in order to start actually doing something with your relationship and your businesses. So let's go on. Rant over.
2 kids under 8, and I own 2 businesses. She says you don't do anything. Once she is mad about something, she throws any positive efforts I have made out the window. She says I am terrible to people, and then when I apologize.
And then there's one other thing here, and I'm not going to stay on this one. I've talked about this on other places, where when you do stuff around the house, never do it in the sense that I'm going to try and get some accolades or score points or get some acknowledgement. I love it when my wife says, "Oh, thank you very much for doing that thing," or "I'm grateful that you did that thing." I love it when she does acknowledge it, but at the same time, I never do it for the expectation for that her partner, and she's got expectations for me to help her out, and I will help out, and will be okay if she never says thank you, because if the house is dirty and I clean it, I want to clean house just as much as she does. So there's no reason why I have to score points. Again, it sets this dynamic of her approving you, and it's not a good thing. It actually makes it's like a parent-child dynamic, and this probably one of those reasons why she's taking sex off the table because, um, you know, he needs this. I've done this. By me doing this, I'm building up some sort of credit in order for her. Like now in this argument, he's now talking about it's all thrown out the window. Now there's something to be said about your wife that she's not very good at being able to maintain respect when when shit hits the fan. So when you guys are now arguing, she loses all respect for you as a person, which is again something that we can talk about based off of the way you interact in terms of a relationship and how you feel validation. So again, it's something that we need to talk about that. So just keep going.
Apologize to those who I supposedly offended. They are like, what are you talking about? Yeah.
Oh yeah, so that's how the so she's even controlling interaction. So you can imagine that she's got so much resentment that when this guy is around other people, she's not even in the present, or she's not interacting with people and enjoying the moment. She's literally watching this guy to see where he's fucking up, and then she wants to control that as well. So again, um, she's now pushing him to go and get them to ask for forgiveness. This is ridiculous. I mean, she's got some serious problems, and again, she's got to the point where she doesn't see him as a priority. She doesn't respect him, and I don't think she's somebody who is going to be good for this guy, especially long term. If he doesn't actually do something about it now, how do you deal with somebody like this who's avoidant, sexually avoidant? Generally, you have to give them what they need, and normally in this case, you don't give them that validation. So generally, what I say to some of these guys when when she makes a request, can you do this thing? If it's an unreasonable request, I will tell them that it's an unreasonable request and I'm not willing to do it. And if they flip out, which is what they will do, then you'll be like, this is not how I would interact and this is not how I would behave. So therefore, moving forward, if this is how you're gonna try and handle this, then I'm not prepared to have this conversation. Or and over a period of time, it's something we'll have to give. At some point, you should be willing to walk away from this relationship. I think part of it is this person will respond better when you tell them that, you know what, this relationship has hit its course. I can see that you've got requirements on what you want for this relationship to go to. I'm obviously not going to match that up. I'm not going to stack up to what you need. So I would like us to co-parent. And I think the only problem is that with this person, is most likely not going to be a very good person to co-parent with because they're going to make life extremely difficult. So, but again, it's some of the things that you might need to communicate and actually think for yourself. Then this person most likely has lost respect for you, and the only way you can gain respect is to have self-respect for yourself and say, I'm going to move away from this situation because this situation is not good for me. Now, most of you guys are in the process of being killed by your partners because just it's a death of 1,000 cuts. Your mental bandwidth is completely off with in terms of how you deal with day to day, and a large chunk of the day you're dealing with stress, anxiety, depression because of that one person that is in your life. If 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 your child was going through that, you would take them out of that situation, and you should be the same. You should be taking yourself out of that situation. It's not good for your children to see a dynamic like this. It's a very horrible dynamic that you are essentially what is going on in your relationship. You're literally passing it on to your children. So again, this is more harmful, not harmful just to you, but it's also harmful to to the kids within this relationship here. So we're just going to end up in these last little bits.
Yet, she wants to go further into debt with me by putting an addition on our house. Like, this is madness. She has completely destroyed my self-esteem. So, if she basically says that I don't deserve love from her, and never will, does that give me a pass to cheat? I know it's shitty, but if I am supposedly a shitty person, might as well act like it, right?
Yeah. So now he's asking for permission to go and cheat. I would advise not to cheat, especially with somebody like this. Um, it would not turn out really well for you in divorce court, and again, it makes it extremely difficult for you to navigate a lot of things, especially if you're a business owner. Again, um, one of the things I say is that right now I'm an engineer. I get paid pretty well for being an engineer. I'm doing my business, which is, and I'm not making enough with my business to retire from engineering. However, if for whatever reason, God forbid, Mama Tribesman decides to divorce me, I'll be willing to make sure that she's okay and make sure that the kids are okay. But what that will do, it will automatically free me up to focus on Tribesmen and make it the best ever community for men so that they can change their relationships, because my focus is on my business. Outside of the relationship, there's nothing else that I think about but my business and work on my business. So instead of trying to find another woman who's going to take up your time, who's going to take up your again, this guy is his priorities are fucked up. The fact that he's thinking about cheating on his wife because he just wants sex, it's a terrible place to be. I think in this situation, if because I'm not getting sex, I'll try and use that energy to really start focusing on that one business and doing everything I can to make it get off the ground, which is what I do outside of being a dad and doing the logistics, like working on the machine that we have as a marriage. Anytime I don't have any other input on what needs to be, what's required of the relationship and the family and logistics and decision making and anything to do with that, the rest of my time is focused on building the business. So if my wife decided no, but to have sex with me forever, instead of cheating, I'll just use that time to focus on my business, because I know that is more fulfilling when you build this entire business. Now, again, I'm not. I would never judge anyone for cheating, because again, I don't know more so circumstances around this. So I'm going to close it down here. But hopefully you've had enough information that can help you to understand a little bit what's going on here. If you want to learn more about how to change a relationship like this and some concepts that I could not dive in deep of around this, we do have lessons within our community. It's called Thriving Tribesmen. It's a paid community where it's a subscription, but it's the idea around it is that it takes a Formula One team to make one champion, and it's the same thing that we use community, what we call community-based transformation. So we help you in a relationship with a community with multiple of people that are within your situation, but also using different methods to changing your relationship, because everything else that's out there has been absolute BS. Because I went through it 12 years ago when I started doing this. A lot of the information that's out there 12 years ago is the same information that's still being pushed, and there's more divorces, there's more horrible things that are happening. So we figured out a process of how to actually change a relationship. Last year, 239 men that we actually empowered within the relationships. So thank you very much, guys. There'll be links in the comments, and thank you very much. Take care.